Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times to talk about horror. As you can see by the thumbnail and by the title, I'm here to talk to you about a movie that has been talked about a lot since it came out, and that is Fresh.
It's coffee time.
Many people had been raving about this film. It was really hyped, even like shortly before its release. All the people that had early access were already raving about the film, and I got really excited. Now, this was released on the 4th of March on Hulu, but we don't have Hulu here, so I'm really glad that it's also available on Disney Plus. So if you don't have Hulu, check your Disney Plus because maybe they have it. And I knew that I had to watch it. Another thing that I had on my side was that I had never seen the trailer, so I was not 100% sure what I was getting myself into, and I think that really helped with my experience. In this review, I'm gonna keep it spoiler free. I'm just going to show you a couple of snippets of the trailer that are the very beginning of the film. I don't want to spoil absolutely anything for anybody. I am going to include, though, at the very end some spoiler thoughts, but I will give you a warning before that happens. For the most part, this is going to be completely spoiler free. This is an American romantic comedy horror thriller. Like, there is a lot of genres that merge into this one, and it is the first full-length movie by director Mimi Cave. She has done previously some shorts, but this is the first time that we get a full-length movie by her, and I am extremely excited to follow her career and see what she does next, because this is one of the best debuts that I have seen. Fresh follows Noah, who meets the cute Steve at a grocery store, and given her frustration with dating apps, she takes a chance and gives him her number. After the first date, Noah is smitten and accepts Steve's invitation to a romantic weekend getaway, only to find out that her new love interest has a really dark secret. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say when it comes to the plot. I'm gonna keep it super vague because I feel like this is a movie that has a lot of different interesting twists and turns, and you should go into the movie without knowing them. When it comes to the characters, I absolutely loved our main couple, Noah and Steve. Noah is a woman that has been dating for a while, and she absolutely despises the way that we date now with these apps and all of these weird encounters with people that, you know, they're not even close to being a match, and she's really discouraged. The majority of the characters in this film just felt really real, and I like that they were really well fleshed out, at least our main couple, because obviously they are the ones that have the most screen time and there is not so much time left for the other side characters. And one thing that I would praise this movie for is that it gave us characters that made choices that were logical. That is something that we would do. You know, those horror movies where people are always making the wrong decisions and you cannot believe that they can be this stupid? Well, this movie is defying against that trope, is going against it, and is giving us characters that are actually choosing the logical way to react to things. Their reactions, their choices, they're completely human, and it is refreshing to see that in characters, especially the character of Noah. I absolutely loved her throughout the whole film because I thought that it was so believable. Noah and Steve have these meet-cute moments at the supermarket, and it felt at the beginning like a little bit of a rom-com, and I have to say, as a couple, they worked so well. Their chemistry was so good throughout the whole movie, and that is one of the best things about this film, this dynamic between these two characters. And for me, Noah, she was just amazing in this role. This has been, like I've said, one of my favorite debut films that I have seen when it comes specifically to horror. This movie is kind of a crazy, like, bonkers horror combined with some satire, and it is so subtle, but it comes at the right times, and I just absolutely loved it. Like, this movie has some humor in it, but it is just so well integrated in the story and in the horror. We have this beginning where Noah is frustrated about dating apps, and you see her going on a date that is absolutely horrible. This guy is someone that we all would like to punch in the face, and we see her transition to meeting Steve and giving herself a chance in love. And we have here this light, fluffy tone, you know, of a romantic comedy. And then when the movie takes a turn, we have this super dark themed movie, and the transition between these two different tones in the film was just flawless. From the sets to the colors, everything was just so well thought through. And I absolutely loved, particularly when we were in the house that they go to for their weekend getaway, and the way that utilized the camera angles in this house was fantastic. There is specifically one scene where we see the camera hover from one room to the next, and it manages to create this expectation, this tension, and it's just fantastic. I only have good things to say about this film. It was not perfect, but for me it was close. Another thing that for me was absolutely perfect was the script by Lauren Kahn. So the script was just so good. The dialogues were so good. And this movie starts, like I said, as a rom-com, and then around minute 38-40 is when we take the turn to something else. And there is nearly a monologue, it's a dialogue, but nearly a monologue by Steve. And that moment for me, those words, that was just so good. I was in awe at that moment, at that scene, what he was saying. I absolutely loved it. After that scene, we get the opening credits like 40 minutes into the film, and they were also fantastic. And I knew that moment, I knew I was gonna love this movie so much. A lot of the dialogues are hinting already at things that are going to happen from the very beginning, which is so smart. And some things are going to be predictable, especially for people that like me that have seen a lot of horror, a lot of thrillers, so you kind of know what things to expect. You kind of smell things coming. However, they always had something ready to surprise you, and you know, I gotta give it to them. This movie was definitely fresh. That was so bad. Like, how many reviewers are gonna use that? Like, shame on me. I feel like the soundtrack was also great, and specifically for me it worked really well sometimes to break those really serious, really dark moments. And weirdly enough, there were a couple of moments where the music kind of lifted up the spirits. It was kind of bringing a little bit of a lighter tone to a really dark scene. When it comes to the horror in this movie, it is more about making the viewer feel uncomfortable, about feeling a little bit unsettled about what's happening, about disturbing the viewer a little bit. Now, this movie does have a lot of moments that are off camera when it comes to the horror, and it is, if you watch a lot of body horror and extreme horror, it is more of a toned down version, I would say. It is not all there when it comes to the body horror and the extreme horror. I feel like the movie could have pushed a little bit more. It could have went a little bit further when it comes to body horror specifically. But for people that are not used to this type of films, I feel like it's going to be extremely disturbing. For me, I had many moments where it was uncomfortable for me. It was, you know, this kind of itchy feeling that you get, and I feel like that is because the director did such a good job at presenting those scenes to me and how things were being revealed, because like I said, I've seen a lot of things already, but I still got this kind of like weird feeling with a lot of the scenes. It was kind of a balance between really disturbing stuff and then moments that were kind of giving us a lighter tone, if you can say. It's just really hard to explain without spoiling the plot. But I felt like the balance between the horror and giving us something a little bit comforting, if you could say, from a movie like this, I think that balance was really well achieved. Now, at the end of the day, I ended up giving this movie a 4 out of 5, which is quite a high rating for me. This movie was not perfect, but it was almost there for me, to be honest, because I felt like the film was original in some aspects. In other things, it was not. It was predictable in some areas, specifically when you're getting close to the end. I feel like it's really easy to tell what's gonna happen, but the ending was satisfying to me, so I don't have really much complaints about the ending. But it did bring something fresh to the horror genre. I feel like this is going to be, for me, one of my favorites of horror movies from 2022. I mean, we're only in March, still a lot of things can happen, but I think like this one is definitely gonna be on my list of favorites. I also feel like some of the charm of the film of Fresh is that it doesn't take itself too seriously at times, and it's just done in such a good way. So that's all that I can tell you guys when it comes to the spoiler-free section of this video. Now, if you have not watched the film, I would recommend you to just, you know, get out of this video and come back here to listen to my spoilery thoughts if you want after you have watched it. So you have been warned. I'm going to go now into spoilers. While American Psycho brought movie viewers inside of the mind of a serial killer, Fresh is taking the audiences deep into a twisted world of elite cannibalism. That is right, when we hit the 40-minute mark, you get the revelation that Steve is actually not such a nice guy. He's actually someone that kidnaps young women in order to basically butcher them, chop them bit by bit, and sell their flesh to a group of elite people. They're paying a lot of money, and I thought it was such a great touch that he made these boxes with like a picture of the girl, underwear, all of these things. I thought that was just so good, and the way he puts music on to do all the chopping and stuff, like the body horror that we got to see, it was really well executed. It looked so real and it was so unsettling. And I know they didn't show a lot of things. I don't know if it's because otherwise it would have been perhaps too much to even put it on Hulu. Because when Steve is doing his surgeries, there are some scenes that I think could have potentially went a little bit too far, perhaps, for, I would say, mainstream horror. So I guess maybe that's why they decided to do a lot of the things off camera. It might have also been a budget thing, who knows, but it also manages to disturb you a lot without showing you too much, which is also a great achievement. That moment where Steve is revealing what actually he's gonna do to Noah, that change of tone was fantastic. I was really enjoying the film at the beginning. You know, I was waiting for that twist. You know it's coming, you know it's gonna happen. But I was not ready for cannibalism at this level. I did not expect it. Also, I did not expect, you know, that he's keeping the females alive while he's chopping them, because obviously the flesh tastes better. And it is really funny because I recently just finished reading Tender is the Flesh, which is a book about also humans consuming human flesh in order to survive. In the book, basically a virus ended with all animals, and humans have to raise other humans for consumption. And I thought it was really interesting to go from the book to this movie nearly back to back. It was a really interesting coincidence. I appreciated that this movie was not too preachy, even though they did try to bring the message across that females' bodies are exploited for other people's pleasure. But I felt like they didn't push it too far, and it was a message that came across without being too pushy as other movies have done. And that's something that always puts me off if you're trying to bring a message across and you're being too like poignant about it. I feel like my only complaint when it comes to the film and the characters would be the character of Anne. She is Steve's wife and I feel like we don't get to know her that well to understand some of her choices, her decisions. We don't really get her background. There is a scene where we see her taking a bath and we see that one of her legs is missing, a part of her leg. So you kind of already assume that probably she was kidnapped by Steve, and then maybe he ended up regretting it, falling in love with her, and now they're together in the business. That's kind of what you assume as a viewer, but I feel like I would have needed a little bit more info to understand her decision, especially towards the end, and see a little bit more of what her thoughts were. So that's basically one of my only complaints. But the characters were all spot on. We even have this bartender that even himself goes to Steve's house, but when he gets there he realizes that hell no, in horror movies, you know, that's how you die. So he just turns around and leaves again, and that was just hilarious. So a lot of good things that came out of this film. I absolutely loved it. Alright, you guys, so these were my thoughts on Fresh, now streaming on Hulu in Disney Plus, depending on your country. And I really definitely recommend you guys to give it a shot. I mean, if you've been listening to me until this point of the video, you probably have watched the film or you skipped the spoilers. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Please give the video a big thumbs up, and I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!